Here he is still going along with the big pharma's position and the anti-worker position. So that's who he is at his core. That's who he is. If he had a shred of fight in him for a worker, he would immediately reinstall those people. He doesn't have a shred of fight in him for workers. And if you think he does, you're a chump. He is Barack Obama on steroids. He is a willing tool of the oligarchy. If you want any better proof that Zohran Mamdani is a fake, and he is a fake. He, just like Barack Obama, as Thomas Frank said in Listen Liberal, he knows or maybe it's another book, I don't know, maybe it's Chris Hedges, he knows the words. He knows the words of a lefty, but he's going to do the exact opposite. Believe me, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
So one of my pet peeves, one of my big issues is COVID and the vaccine mandates and how we were lied to about all that, and what an anti-worker thing the vaccine mandates were. That was Nazism on steroids. That's forcing people to take an experimental medical treatment with no long-term studies, or they can't go to work and feed their family. That's Nazi stuff, and so that's fascism. And he was asked about, because they fired a bunch of city workers who refused to, including firemen, people who worked, firemen and EMTs that worked without a vaccine, treating people on the front lines for a year, and then they rejected it, and then they went from heroes to getting fired. And he was asked, here he's being asked if he's going to rehire those people, and listen to what he says.
Two questions. We have someone on the chat, Marlon Bethel, right? Like yourself, first-generation immigrant, NYPD police officer, rose to the rank of intelligence detective, terminated by the Eric Adams administration without due process, without a department trial, without ever being charged criminally or civilly for failure to take a vaccine. What are your thoughts on that? On your administration, would you hire Marlon Bethel back?
You know, I struggle on this in that I think it is, on the one hand, can absolutely understand the frustration of someone who has lost their job in a time when the city is tearing apart so much of the same policies that were made at the height of COVID, and has arbitrarily decided which ones to keep and which ones to take. I mean, I'm right now in the state legislature pushing back against the governor's attempt to ban masks, which would sound ridiculous if I told you that a few years ago when it was illegal to not wear a mask. And to have all of this at the same time, I understand where that frustration comes from. On the other hand, I also do deeply feel the importance of following public health mandates in a pandemic emergency, especially when you're a public worker. So I think ultimately, if you ask me today, would I be hiring Marlon back? I think I would fall on the side of no, because of the concerns around the necessity of upholding that public health mandate. And yet I also don't want to pretend that this is simple or straightforward, because there are so many contradictions. And I think that one of the contradictions that that really stuck with me was how we had a different set of rules for workers than we did for celebrities. And I think what New Yorkers want is consistency. So that's where I am today, but I understand it's not simple, it's not straightforward.
But
so just to let everybody know who's watching, that is 100% anti-worker platform. That is an anti-worker position. That is the opposite of socialism. That is the opposite. That is corporatism on steroids, which is married with the government, then becomes fascism. So what he's literally, you hear a lot of talk about fascism. What he's advocating here is fascism. He's advocating to fire people, make them lose their jobs for not taking a product from a corporation. And that's why they did the mandate, and that's what that was all about, because the big pharma controls our politicians, and it had nothing. We all know now that the vaccine had nothing to do with stopping the spread of COVID. Nothing. In fact, the more vaccines you take, the more likely you are to get sick from COVID. We know that now. We know that the only people that were vulnerable to COVID were the elderly, just like the flu. Who said that? Bill Gates. And then it had a low fatality rate. COVID. Everything was overblown. We all know we were lied to about everything, And yet here he is still going along with the big pharma's position and the anti-worker position. So that's who he is at his core. That's who he is. If he had a shred of fight in him for a worker, he would immediately reinstall those people. He doesn't have a shred of fight in him for workers. And if you think he does, you're a fucking chump. He is Barack Obama on steroids. He is a willing tool of the oligarchy. And so now these guys actually push back on him. Watch this.
Again, this is not really a vaccine issue, in my opinion. This is a civil rights issue. This is a worker rights issue. This is someone that worked for 2 years prior to this mandate during a pandemic when most New Yorkers were in there and was previously infected and had natural provable antibodies, which the CDC said were acceptable as to had the same level of protection that the vaccine did. This is more of a worker rights issue. So, sitting there and saying, oh, I care about homelessness, I care about worker rights, I care about the middle class, when we see a completely totalitarian dictate come down from a government that made absolutely no sense. Because like you just said it yourself, Kyrie Irving could play basketball, but Maul and Bethel couldn't go to work 2 years later. I mean, to me, it's kind of a hypocritical stance, in my opinion. How, because to me, this is not a vaccine issue at all. This is a civil rights, worker right issue. This set, honestly, New York City back, labor rights back, probably 100 years.
I mean, I hear you, and I understand the contradictions at the core of it. I think my concern comes from the likelihood of, that we could be in a new pandemic and the necessity of following the public health guidance that we put forward in that pandemic. To the places where I absolutely hear.
So what he just said was, hey, I'm willing to do this again. Well, we might have to do this again. We might have to do the exact wrong thing again, and I'm going to do it at the behest of Big Pharma because that's what my party wants me to do, and I'm not going to cross my party. So there it is. That 100%. He's not only is he anti-worker, and he's not going to stand up for the worker against actual fascism and corporatism, but he already signaled, I got to do it again. I'm going to do it again. So go ahead, bro. Take it wherever you want.
Okay, so I went out and we live streamed one of the Tesla protests back in, I think it was April. And he was there, and he was very easy to interview. He was only at, I think, 5% in the polls then. So I asked him a couple of questions, and one of the questions I asked him was, a lot of people got burned by the Sanders campaign. How do you persuade people to get involved in a Democratic campaign? And he gave me the most word salad, dodgy answer. And after that, when we did the replay and we covered it on the show, I said, my gut instinct, meeting this guy, seeing how he handled that question, he's a politician. He's a politician. He's slick. This guy is slick. And he was slick. And it doesn't surprise me. This was something else last week. And I saw this at that time. We had ins with his campaign, and his campaign was very small then. And I hadn't, I had asked him a real question, but I didn't ask him a nasty question. It wasn't like a Rappaport interview kind of situation. And we could not get an interview with him, but it wasn't just us. Nobody could. Nobody from this world, our world. Yeah. Nobody could get an interview with him. He didn't make the rounds, even when he was nowhere in the polls. And even last week, his campaign made a big deal out of the fact that they had invited a lot of content creator new media, but they made a point of saying they weren't politics channels. Yeah. So what? You bring in people with like
Mr. Beast
lifestyle brands and this kind of thing,
makeup channels and cooking channels. Is that what you? Yeah,
exactly. And we know someone, Blakely, who finally did. They did another one where they gave you like a minute with him in front of a backdrop for the campaign. And that was it. And she was actually kind of surprised not to get an invite. They don't want to deal with that shit. They know where we come from. We're going to ask them a question like, why are you keeping the Zionist police commissioner? He doesn't want to deal with that. If he's going to get a question like that, he wants it to come from Al Sharpton. Like dealing with us, they felt from the beginning, even when they were at 5%, they did not want to talk to people like us. Maybe it's partly because of interviews like this that they did not want to.
Nobody wants to be challenged from their left. Bernie Sanders wouldn't come on shows like this. Bernie Sanders made Kyle Kalinske sit in the corner and watch as he banged his girlfriend. So,
like he'll talk to Hassan because he's big enough. They felt like the juice was worth the squeeze.
Yeah, but Hassan's not going to. But Hassan did not confront them or challenge them at all.
Well, that's another.
It's a
reason.
softball. That's what they'll go anywhere where there's going to be a softball interview. Hassan is not to the left of anybody. Is that what
when he was at 5% of the polls, he wouldn't talk to anybody.
That's right.
He wouldn't talk to anybody from that world. No, you're absolutely right. But in terms of what you're bringing up now, that's just scratching the surface. If they had not been so obsessed with painting him as a radical jihadist Muslim, there was a treasure trove of policies on his website that they could have gone after as woke pretty effectively, in my opinion, much more effectively than painting the guy who released an ad with a singing drag queen as somebody who's going to bring Sharia law to the city. But I look, whatever you think of Mamdani, whatever we might think, that is the most fucking racist campaign I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, what? That's
I have never seen.
So you're 100% right about
ever.
that. The Democrats, because the Democrats actually don't have any policies to offer people, so they have to play identity
Cuomo.
politics. They have to play.
Yeah. Cuomo can't go after him on the trans stuff on his website because he's running as a de facto Democrat, right? But all of these Sid Rosenberg maniacs, they could have gone after him on that. They did. In fact, I didn't use this clip in my montage. I went up to Sid Rosenberg and I said, because he said he only wants to answer questions about Mamdani, nothing about Cuomo. So I said, all right, well, here's one. What do you think about his policy of youth gender medicine? He did not want to talk about it. He was just like, normally, a right winger, that's red meat for these guys. It complicated their narrative that he's this crazy jihadist. He just said to me, "Yeah, that's another thing," and he walked away. He did not want to get into it.
You can't be a jihadist and pro gay rights. That's how they try to get you to hate Palestinians. Palestinians, they hate gay people. Shouldn't you be for slaughtering them? And let me just show you. I just want to show you this last part. Power to the people. Proud Socialist says, in a capitalist society, the rich use elections to bribe and install politicians to preserve the status quo. Even candidates that present themselves as socialists get swept up in the corruption. The people's main tools for change are strikes, protests, and revolution. Let's use them. So
100% right.
You're not going to vote. Again, there's no voting your way out of this. Even the people who voted for Donald Trump, you're not getting what you were promised.
No. Mamdani had a guy from McKinsey going around talking to all of the heads of the corporations and the banks. Don't worry, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
yes.
no. The fix is in. I think part of what's most interesting here, though, is the fact that people elected him. Like, that does represent, particularly in New York City, a major sea change. And sure, Mamdani is not going to want to do what people want. But if you keep deferring it, you're just pushing the country closer to civil war. In terms of overall, what I think all of this is about is you got two different types of trap for two different kinds of mice. When the Democrats or the lefts or the liberals are culturally ascendant, they do shit that's going to make people run in the other direction. They drive them absolutely insane with their blue hair stuff and having slave catching exercises in the public school, as they did in Virginia, which now did an enormous swing back towards the Democrats after flipping to the Republicans because of things like this. And now the Republicans have just gone absolutely insane, locking up gardeners and sending them to torture dungeons in foreign countries. And that's we saw last night not just in New York City and New Jersey and Virginia, two deeply untalented candidates that won blowout victories because everyone now is just running back in the other direction. Meanwhile, each time they're in power, each party is bringing us closer and closer to that World Economic Forum, New World Order. They're bringing us closer and closer to a total surveillance state where you have very little means of doing anything to break out of the cage that they've put you in. And people have learned to settle for less, and they are so surveilled and policed, they don't really have a means of getting more. Okay, under Kamala, you couldn't get ICE, right? Because the kind of people who support Trump would have gone nuts. They would have immediately said they're building a national police force to crack down on the public. They would have immediately said that. You need Trump to do it. And now once Trump does it, what happened with the Patriot Act? What? The Democrats got in, they dismantled that? No, they didn't dismantle that. They kept voting for it. What? You think after Trump builds this fascist national police force, the Democrats are going to come in and get rid of it?
No.
Or are they going to use it? They're going to use it. That's it. They keep you running back and forth from one to the other, arguing this culture war bullshit. Meanwhile, they're tightening and tightening and tightening the bars of your cage until finally the end game is they're not going to need us anymore. If you see Scott Bessent, if you see Pigman, Howard Lutnick, whenever they ask them, well, where do you think all these workers are going to come from? They forget themselves. They forget themselves for a minute and they get giddy. Oh, well, I think with technology, these are going to be smart factories. They're going to be automated. They forget the game. They forget to lie about it. They are salivating. They're salivating at the technology coming down the line because what power has labor always had? They need you. They are salivating about the day they don't need you anymore. While the pigs are down in the mud fighting about trans and fighting about tampons in the bathroom, they're building your cage. Jesus Christ, Peter Thiel named his fucking company after the evil surveillance crystal ball in Lord of the Rings. Like, how much more out in the open could you put the plan than to call your company Palantir?
So that's why I think it's funny when people like Matt Walsh, who he made a couple of really great movies, but like most of the people, the right wing commentators they're missing. They're overinflating what Mamdani is. He says
they're an op. Most of these guys are an op. They're paid.
An op, you're saying?
They're paid. They're paid just like corporate media. They all put out the same message at the same time. How does that happen? They're paid.
There's been a lot of cope among conservatives about how the extremists and radicals on the left have driven leftism into ruination and defeat. In reality, the left just put their most radical and extreme guy in charge of the most important city in our country. The left is not ruined. It's not defeated. They lost precisely one election, but they have not moderated. In fact, they are leaning into their radicalism even more. They just elected an attorney. So this whole pretend that Mamdani is a radical, just like the pretend that AOC or Barack Obama is a radical. They are corporatists and party loyalists. And the party, we have two corporate parties in America. So that's where I would, Matt Walsh, you're just completely 100% wrong about this. That this is not a radical takeover of the New York City. This is the only radical thing he's even halfway proposing is a rent freeze, which they had three of them under Bill de Blasio, who's a fastball down the middle New York Democrat. So this is just maddening to see people on the left think that he's a socialist and a savior, and people on the right think he's a radical. He's not. He's a regular go along, get along Democrat who's welcomed by the establishment. I don't know. I don't know. Can I show you this again? This is who he is. That's him with George Soros. That's him with George Soros's kid, the heir to the billionaire fortune. That's who. Small smiles all around. Nothing to worry about. That'd be a hell of a thing if he was actually a socialist and he was actually going to go after the billionaires. That'd be a hell of a picture. But it's not. Yeah. That picture shows you the opposite. And so that's what Matt. So,
well, because they push his buttons, man. Matt Walsh, as soon as Charlie Kirk was murdered, the White House and the people around the White House made it very clear they wanted to push a narrative about crazy trans people. And it was very obvious after those text messages came out, and even before, that sounded like, Raymond Chandler on acid wrote that. And he was still pushing it. He was still pushing it, man. And he's not a dumb guy. Some of these people are really dumb.
Yeah, no, Matt's very smart guy.
So at that point, somebody's pulling your strings. Look, as soon they saw that the Snap thing was going to create some very damning images of families without food, all of these people start saying the same exact stuff about how people don't need Snap and they're abusing it. Somebody told them. They don't all. We say that about the corporate media, right? It's very obvious to us the corporate media all hit the same point on the same day. What? There's no coordination.
Right.
All these people are pushing the same exact talking points about Snap. Now, a lot of them could not go along with the Tyler Robinson thing. Matt did.
Yeah, he did. He did. All right, well, we got to move on. I could talk about this because this is the important thing. This was the thing that shows you that you're being hoodwinked into a left-right paradigm in the United States. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's corporate against corporate.
Sure.
It's corporate against corporate, and that's that.
I think the great question of our time is how do you completely take down this system, and what do you replace it with if you do? This is really the question. You're not voting your way out of this anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have to, if you can get corporate money out of politics from coast to coast, that's the thing. So you have to find a way to do that, and the only way to do that is to shut down the economy, like the truckers did, the truckers did in Canada.
Right.
If you can figure out a way to do that, or if you can get UPS and Amazon and to go on strike on the same day, that would do it too. But that's not going to happen because UPS jobs are pretty good jobs, in the relatively speaking in this economy. Right. So what you need is the European style workers rebellion. Your workers in France and Italy, they're going on strike all the time.
And this is why they're doing everything possible to keep you fighting
each other,
distracted. You got a certain kind of person where you say all those white people are racist. All right, that's the kind of trap that they like, and you turn them against that group. And then you got a certain kind of person who says, oh, they hate all the white workers and they're gonna destroy your culture. That's a certain kind of mouse. And now you got that person trapped. And if you can keep those people fighting each other while you're building an automated world where you don't need any of them, that's the end game, I believe.
Russell Dobular, thank you for making time. I appreciate it. Everybody check out the Due Dissidence, who will be guest hosting for me when we're in Australia. So that's looking forward to that. All right, Russ, take care, buddy.
Thanks. Good seeing you, Jimmy.
Microplastics are infiltrating every part of our lives. Scientists estimate we now consume a credit card's worth of plastic every single week through our food, our water, and even the air we breathe. One study found plastic particles in 100% of human lung samples. Nobody's safe from overexposure. It gets worse. These plastics just don't sit in your body. They cross the gut lining, they leach into your blood, and disrupt everything. They've been shown to alter gut bacteria, suppress your immune response, and increase your risk for neurodegenerative disease, metabolic disorders, and cancer. Some plastic toxins like BPA and phthalates mimic hormones, interfere with fertility, and damage DNA. Even if you eat clean or avoid packaged foods, you're still being exposed. You can't opt out, but your gut can help you fight back. Kimchi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition is a potent ally in this toxic world. It's packed with over 900 probiotic strains unique to kimchi and proven to break down BPA. helping you detox from the inside out. It doesn't just support digestion, it helps protect your cells, your brain, your hormones, and your future. Your body was never designed to handle plastic, but your gut was designed to protect you. You just have to give it the right tools. Right now, you can get 25% off with my code Dore, D-O-R-E, at the link below. For an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore and get up to 50% off and free shipping. The number, 888-253-0418. Come see us in Australia. Second show's added in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. We'll see you in Burbank, California, the day after Thanksgiving. It's a Friday. And then Pottstown, Pennsylvania, December 6th. Plus, January 11th, we're going to be in Waikiki at the Blue Note. Tickets not available yet for them, but go to jimmydore.com for a link for all the other tickets.